Hello everybody, welcome, and today we are going to be talking about Lego Ninjago Dragon Rising Season 4, my initial thoughts, as well as just some critiques and also some things I was very happy to see, or at least pleasantly surprised by. I am, real quick disclaimer, I'm not going to be too worried about spoilers or spoiling anything, but you should be, in the sense that I'm not going to hold anything back particularly. I'm not going to go super duper deep into exact things that happen, but I will be talking about plot points and very much digging in, especially in Lloyd's arc. So if you don't want to be spoiled, definitely click off, go finish watching the show, and come back here. With that out of the way, for those of you who may not know this, Dragons Rising Season 4 officially came out in the US on on April 2nd, and it is 10 episodes, and I was very pleasantly surprised with a lot of the writing decisions and a lot of the animation decisions. I have enjoyed a good chunk of the character design decisions, but there are also some that I'll get to later on. I'd like to move kind of chronologically. I say now, and I'm going to completely abandon that later, I'm sure. Moving through kind of the show. So I've been watching Ninjago since the beginning, and then I took a break probably around season 10 or 11. I think it was I stopped watching before around just, I think it was a little bit after Skybound, and then, but I never remember what order this early seasons are in, so it's hard to say, but I definitely hadn't watched Seabound at that point. I had not finished the original show. It wasn't until Dragons Rising Season 2 had come out that I went back and I think I rewatched seasons 12 through 15, and then when I had finished that, I had asked the only other person I can talk to about Lego Ninjago if I should watch Dragons Rising, and she told me yes, if only because then I could talk to her about it. So I watched Dragons Rising, and I kind of stuck with it, and I've enjoyed a lot of the decisions. I'm not an OG truther in the sense that everything in the old show was perfect, because let's be honest, it wasn't, and we can critique things and also love them. I love Lego Ninjago a lot. I have many critiques on the show and decisions as a whole. So I'm gonna be truthfully honest in my reviewing of the things that I liked and didn't like. As I mentioned before, very pleasantly surprised with the writing decisions. I feel like it really felt like we were cleaning things up as far as things that we had gotten from before, as far as talking about Jay and Jay's memories, and when it came to getting to know some of our other characters, we got to learn more about Frack and his family dynamic. I liked that Frack and Sora got to kind of have a little character moment together of kind of talking about what it's like to come from home where you don't really feel accepted as who you are. And I think it was interesting because they have such very different experiences in that, whereas Frack is I'm loyal to my family despite how it might have treated me, whereas Sora's I wasn't gonna do that, fam. I got out of Dodge. And so it's seeing them kind of talk about it. Of course, I always would have loved more, but even still, I think what they did with it was really good, and I think it's good to talk about those things. I think for a show that's targeted at not people my age, um, people younger than me. It's a good conversation to have. Um, I also really appreciated the growth in conversations about, like, kind of how the show handled consequences. I feel like Dragons Rising has done a much better job than the original show in putting things in that are like, here are consequences of previous actions. And part of it is like, this is a callback to this old thing. Oh, like, I don't want to call it nostalgia bait, but in the sense of like, it is nostalgic for me because I remember it. That was from my childhood when it initially came out that way. But like talking about um even just consequences in its own encapsulated show of like, you did this thing, here's this consequence, it's still a problem now that you still have to deal with. I think like the show as a whole from beginning to now has kind of been back and forth between whether or not certain things get prolonged consequences or not, on whether like for characters more often than not those consequences will stick, especially for Lloyd, which I'm going to talk about in a minute because that man can't catch a break. um but I think especially for characters those consequences kind of stick around for character building. But when it comes to like other plot points, especially powers, I think even, you know, diehard Ninjago truthers about the OG show can even, you know, even complain like, what happened to air jitsu? What happened to like every like, you know, bunch of power upgrades and we never see them again. And this show isn't perfect about that either, but I've noticed that I feel like it's better about it, or maybe I just don't remember everything that well. When talking about um like now I'm gonna bring up Lloyd and Lloyd's arc here. Um I simultaneously it was more and less of what I expected. Um there was many moments in the writing in general where I was like, that feels like a I'm gonna fit this into the trailer as like a whoa, I wonder what's gonna happen next. Like there was a lot of lines that were like that, um, especially for Lloyd, I think because that was like the big pull. It's like, oh, we're gonna talk about what had like the consequences around him jumping over his age and like skipping that age because of the tomorrow's tea thing. And so it's like, oh, we're really gonna get into to talking about that. And then simultaneously I feel like we didn't talk enough about it. Like I really did. I thought that the arc with Lloyd was gonna last much shorter. It lasted through like pretty much it lasted the whole season, um as far as him being in the woods and going through like that journey. The trial itself obviously was less than that, as far as like his interactions with his younger self and that confrontation. So I think maybe that's kind of where that simultaneousness like happened, because I was like, oh, this is gonna be like a couple episodes and then we're gonna be done and they're gonna like meet up with the rest of the cast. Which I guess if like you're starting from the trial and then meeting up to the rest of the cast, that does happen. Um, but I would have wanted more. I so glad that so glad that she was back to do the voice of younger Lloyd. That was, I know a lot of people were hyped for that. I was hyped for that. It was great to see that again. I did enjoy them talking about the prophecy. I know a lot of people are up in arms about here's the if you haven't clicked off yet about kind of spoilers, do so now. I'm about to really get into it. Um the whole Lloyd not being the only green ninja thing has really set some people off and has really been something that's been a point of contention that I've noticed amongst discussions online as far as like, oh, this ruins the whole thing because, it was only supposed to like you're supposed to be the chosen one and that doesn't make sense. And I understand the people who are frustrated by that because it does kind of feel like a takeaway from that. I'm gonna see my strawberry shortcake's pajama pants for a second here. But at the same time, I think we need to take a step back and be like, this show has been going on for so long and we've been lore building for so long. Some things are gonna come out muddled. That's like from a production standpoint, that's just gonna happen. Like the continuity kind of is kind of always been a little bit all over the place. It's been fairly good and consistent about it, but we've lost things along the way, and that's just something that happens. With this particularly though, I think people are overreacting a little bit. One, this show, like Dragons Rising specifically, has been very clear about the fact that time time discussions have very specific verbiage that is hard to dissect from our brains kind of thing, because like in that moment it's like, oh, for generations we've had this for generations we've had this thing, and the gray ninja has been coming and doing these woods and whatever. But we also have conversations about cycles, and we still don't even know what that means. So it could be that. But also, I think people forget, like, it could literally just be other elemental masters of life. Like, we know elemental powers get passed down, and two things can be right simultaneously. Like, two things can be correct simultaneously. Lloyd can be the chosen prophecy green ninja and also not be the only, like, green ninja, in the sense that Lloyd can not be the only other elemental master of life and also be the prophesied green ninja, right? Like, those things can be true. Because, like, if it weren't to be, like, those two things can be true. I do like the fact that they pulled the prophecy in, like, for a little visual thing. I do like that the full connection of Lloyd's powers is that I like that the elemental master of life's power is around connection because of the, like, life thing and it's connected to things. Hot take, I don't like the dragon forms that they take. I think, okay, the animation budget ramps up when we do the magical girl transformation at the end of that season. And like Lloyd powers people up and they do that, and that looks really cool. I'm not saying it doesn't look cool. I don't like the designs. But I think it's gonna be okay because, like other powers in Lego Ninjago, I don't think we're ever gonna see it again. The same way we're not gonna talk about, like, any other, the way that Air Jitsu has died, in that same kind of way. But maybe it will come back, later for some reason. I have been, back and forth on whether or not I like. No, I think I'm decided. I don't like Roz as a villain. I don't like him as the big bad. He's really annoying to me. And, like, we can have different opinions about this. For me, it's not about anything he does as a villain specifically. He's not The same thing goes for Beatrix. It's not that they're different because they're kind of very much like villain. Like Beatrix is very much villain of the week coded, like for like, as far as like Ninjago goes. She's not like out of the ordinary for that, and Roz is very much not out of the ordinary for like this is a Lego Ninjago villain thing. It's just vibes. I just don't like him. I don't like the way that he sounds. I don't like I I like certain things about him as a character. Like I don't completely hate him, which is why I've like been able to keep watching him whenever he shows up. But that I like that he's able to talk to Aaron and be like, "Hey, like I'm going to give you honesty in this conversation." And I don't think Roz thought he was lying to Aaron either, which I think is an interesting note. I don't know that the show will ever address that. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't think Roz was deceiving Aaron when he was like, I saw your parents' graves, dude. They're dead. I'll tell you the truth about it. I don't think he was wrong in that, but I do, you know, I like that he was able to kind of do that. Um, those are a lot of most of my thoughts about the show. Like as previously like mentioned, there are like I always have pros and cons of the show. Sorry, I'm checking the time. I always have pros and cons of the show, but overall, it was a fun watch, and the intro was banging. I'm getting more and more. I used to not like the intro, but I'm getting more and more used to it, and it's been pleasant. So I'm kind of really hoping that things work out. And I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see where the show goes from here. I wish, like I mentioned before, I wish that we had bigger conversations with Lloyd about how he feels about failure and as a leader, and we get those kinds of like conversations, and he does kind of like plot armor his way out of death. But for me, I'm like, whatever. It's a reasonable enough explanation. I can live with it. But those have been my thoughts. If I go any longer, I'll rant about it forever. But those are my thoughts about Lego Ninjago Dragons Rising Season 4. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you in the next one. This has been Lily, signing off.